This is Team
Team
Rochelle.
Rochelle.
And guys, you are rolling with us. Thank you so much for basically commenting, rolling with us. We are so appreciative of every comment, every every note, every DM. We are just humbled by this process. But
awesome.
Today we want to get into episode 3, part 2 of our interracial relationship. And basically, you guys asked us questions.
Yes, they were good questions.
Yeah, they were amazing questions about what we encountered, what we experienced. So today, live here on Rolling with the Rochelles, we're going to go ahead and answer those questions to the best of our ability. And guys, again, we're skimming the ice. If you have an opportunity, you want to talk to us directly, cool. But we're just going to hit them hard and get ready to go.
Okay, so we have all of the questions that you guys asked in this beautiful little cup right here. So what we're going to do is we're just going to pull out questions at random. We did write all of them down. So there's 16 questions in here. So we'll pull out a question and then we'll just answer it.
Facts.
So we're hoping to get through as many as possible because like we said, you guys asked some really, really great questions. So we're definitely wanting to get to as many of these as possible. So let's start.
All right, question number 1. So what's the meanest thing someone has said about you being in an interracial relationship? You want to answer that? Cause,
I really can't, well,
go ahead.
I can't think of anything personally. I don't think anyone said anything directly to me regarding us being in an interracial relationship that's mean.
Yeah.
I mean, we get stared at sometimes. Like, we get the weird looks, for sure.
I think some of the weirdest things that I've heard are just misconceptions or stereotypes.
True.
When people will be like, oh, like, he's dating her, that wet dog, or, I mean, you know, anything. No. No, people say stuff like that. Like,
they say
you know what I'm saying? Like, just crazy stuff without knowing somebody.
Yeah.
So, nobody said anything directly to me either.
Stereotypes, though,
sure. But I think stereotypes are probably the more offensive or mean thing in cases like that because you're just blanketing a whole person off of perception. So
instead of knowing them.
Yeah, so
that's
I
true.
don't know.
Next.
Number 2. Question number 2. Here we go.
Do you think interracial couples need more representation in the media?
Okay.
That's a good one.
So that is a great question.
It is.
And what I think right now, and what we talk about this all the time, the representation has never been higher for interracial relationships as a group. I mean, we've hit a place where it's like it's common to see that in movies or action, you know, films or whatever. I think that that movie with Will Smith.
Which one?
You know the movie with Will Smith.
Maybe I do.
Is the gambling movie.
Oh, yes. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I don't know the name, but...
That, for example, I think you see that a lot. And what we were discussing at breakfast is that I think we tread on dangerous waters when we start making stereotypes of like actual relationships. And that's what I don't agree with. I think they're doing a great job of showing like families and interracial marriage and all that other stuff. But I don't want to be the tagline at the end of the joke because of my relationship. I want to love her because I love who she is versus because she's white or, you know, a taboo thing that is kind of like a fad or something.
Trend.
You know? Trend. And that's not cool. I really don't like that. Like, let's not make it trendy or it's like it's cool to date a black man or it's like it's great because you know what I'm saying? Like, let's not be cliches about it. We're people. So
I think that is very common in America as well. You see a lot of the times, like if you see interracial couples like represented, you'll see a black man and a white woman.
Yeah.
And we talked about that as well with Jarell's mom. And it's like, you know, it's nice to see the inverse of that. It's nice to see other interracial relationships because not just black and white people.
There's Indian people. Yeah.
It could be anybody that is intermixing among the race. So I think if any more representation needs to be made, it's more so in seeing the different types of interracial relationships, more so than the same thing over and over and over and over, because it's just not, it's not telling of what's really out there in terms of those kinds of relationships. So
that's true. Facts. All right. Question number 3. Let's go. Okay. How should you deal with someone of the same race as you disrespecting your spouse? This is pretty easy for me.
Well.
Oh, but go ahead.
Okay.
It's pretty easy. I love that. I love that question. That was a good question.
I think this question could be in terms of any relationship. So what's really important, I think, for us has been establishing boundaries in our relationship.
That's facts.
Whether that's with friends, whether that's with family, and that takes time in a relationship. And communication, to be very honest with you. If you have somebody that's disrespecting your spouse, no matter what it is, and especially, amongst race or whatever the question is, I think it's really important to stand up for the person that you are with, because essentially you have each other. It says in the Bible that a man will cleave to his wife and a wife will cleave to her husband. And so, I mean, when you enter that marriage, that's what you're there for. You're there to back each other up. So if you have one person that's willing to back the other up and not the other way, it can be not beneficial. It's not helpful. It's not good for your relationship. And that goes into the same thing with race. If somebody has a problem with your partner because of their race, I mean, that's up to your situation, whether you think that conversation with that person is worth having or not, because some people are hard-headed and they just believe what they believe, and they're not going to change. But I would always say stand up for your partner, because you chose that person and that's who you're with and you love them.
That's a fact. You can't, you gotta fight for them, period. For sure. And regardless of who it is or what race, you just fight for them.
Yes. And I will say sometimes, like I said before, it's not always worth having the conversation. So just choose your battles wisely. If it's someone that you really love and you want them to understand, take the time to speak with them. But if not, let it go. Question.
Do you ever feel incompetent, or that someone of the same race or the opposite sex will relate, understand your spouse better, or make your spouse feel more understood? This is a fully loaded question, and I love it. And I'm going to say no. And here's why. I think when it boils down to a person, we're talking about humanity here. We're all kind of like messed up, like in this greater sense of we all got issues and we all got problems. At a certain point, it has to become about the commitment you're making to that person versus what you think would be easily defined or understood by someone of the same race or culture, because problems are problems. It's the problem solver. You know what I'm saying? Like you have to look at the problem solver. And if that person, and you find in that person that they think about things that are the same as you, or you guys have a commonality or vices that are working together that are great, then you're able to supersede basically the race card or whatever it is that might create a barrier. And for me, that's what I focus on, just understanding that.
And I think too, for me, like when you're in a relationship and it's something that God has given you, like this is the person that God has for me. And it's like, it's not so much a race thing. Like I'm not with him because he's black. Like that's not my aim. You know what I'm saying? And so I think when you look through it with that lens, like no matter what race either of us would be, like we were made for each other. And I think when you're in that relationship and you really have something that God purposed, like, not to say race doesn't matter, doesn't play into things, but that's the same question of would he be better off with somebody else, race or not? Like,
and check this out. Like, there's a certain point where it becomes about like anyone can be ignorant about anything. It's like, is that person willing to go the extra mile to research and not be ignorant so that they can be aware with you? That's what we're talking about, awareness. We're talking about awareness, just being aware and open. So it doesn't really come to that. It comes to just someone who's willing to be knowledgeable about the things they don't know about and be humble enough to admit it.
And if that's the person that God has for you, that's your person.
That's your person, straight.
And don't let anybody sway you in any other direction.
Don't let people tell you.
And it's okay.
You know, in your heart.
Yep.
Go.
Question number 5.
Question number 5. Question number 5. I like this. Come on, let's go.
Okay, it says, do either of your families have apprehensions about your relationship?
No.
Yeah, we're blessed.
No, we're really, really fortunate to have families where we can have conversations.
Yeah, I think so. That really sums it up. We really are blessed in that department. Both of our families have been very accepting of the other person. And I think through learning each other, it's taken time. I mean, I think at first there's always that like
yeah, there were,
who are you?
and
what
it
are you
wasn't
about?
it wasn't always like just sunny, but we're I'm sorry, keep going. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go.
It's okay. No, I was just gonna say that we're really blessed in that, you know, we each have our own things we had to learn about each other, and our families had to learn about us. So that definitely takes time, but that's okay. And yeah, we have very supportive parents and families, and we love them. So
yeah. Number 6. How do you preserve minority culture in an interracial relationship in children? How do you
preserve that minority culture for your children
in
an interracial relationship?
So, can I answer this?
Yeah,
go ahead. So how you preserve that, I feel, is being intentional. And what we decided to do as a couple is we're not going to say, oh, you have to go to this, or we have to go to that. You basically make it a priority for your child to know both sides of them, but especially Black. I think Maddie had a good point, because she said the chances that Addie will see a white woman on television who's in the leading role is very large. So in order to make it a perspective that makes sense to her being an African American girl, is for her to see African American women of power be able to do whatever it is that they do on a level of excellence that is unparalleled. And so we're going to introduce her to things like the Harlem Dance Theater, and we're gonna watch Doc McStuffins because she's a successful Black little doctor, and she heals the world. But we're also gonna be intentional about just flowing into culture and how they represent the parts of her mother. Mm-hmm. But I think it's just being intentional. Just know exactly where you're gonna go, and don't disband your culture just because we're two different races. We are two different races, so we have to have that respect and understanding. And sometimes as being a Black male, we have to search for things that will cater to her understanding that, like in Greenville, there's this Black bazaar, and it's all Black businesses. Mm-hmm. And she's going to go to that and just be a part and know that there are Black business owners and there are people who are doing great things in that. So for me, it's about being intentional.
That's a good word as well, because then on the opposite side of that, like he said before, I mean, white culture is it dominates America. So you see it a lot on TV, like he said. If you turn on the television, most likely you're going to see that representation on the media, no doubt. And so when you're trying to preserve that culture, for me as a mom as well, like on the other side, the same thing. I have to be very intentional about introducing that to her, you know, and, you know, I think for white people, as a white mom in general, it's like you can't be offended by the fact that you want your child to have that culture. It's not about saying, you know, this is it's not about saying that, you know, white culture is less than, or you see it and, you know, this and that. It's like it's already there. So what we want to focus on is being, like you said, intentional and bringing his part of the culture to her as well, and like having representation and having strong Black women in her life
like
that will pour into her, like her Mimi and her Auntie Tia, and, you know, going to things that represent that Black culture as well, and making sure that she knows that it's important. And her mama thinks it's important as well. It's not just one side. It's not just Jarell that's saying, oh, this is important to you. This is mom saying it's important to you as well, because she needs to hear that from both of us. Amen. So I think intention is a great word. Keep that word. Right. Question number 7.
Boom. Let's go.
All right. It says, have you learned anything from each other's culture? Right off the bat, what comes to my head? Communication.
Wow.
And I will always say that, like, just being upfront and honest with what's going on. I've learned that definitely from my husband. I've learned that from your whole family, and I just love it. Communication in a different way. So we just, you know, I grew up communicating differently than we do in our relationship and how he does, and so I think that's been a big thing, and it's really grown me as a person, so I'm thankful for it. And plenty of other things, but I could get into that all day, so I just thought of one really great one.
And on the other side of that, communication as well, because sometimes you don't need to be so emotionally based. You need to, like, plant your feet into the ground and just know something. And I think on the other end of that, it's like, you know, I learned that, and sometimes you just gotta let stuff blow over. You don't talk about it, you just let it blow over, and it heals itself.
Boom shakalaka.
Boom shakalaka.
Okay, So our weekly challenge this week is we want you guys to ask, I'm going to keep that word, an intentional question to somebody of the opposite race.
Yeah.
Really trying to learn about their culture or something that's special to them, what makes their culture so unique, what makes them so unique as a person, and really do it. You can tell when you people are asking questions just to be nosy, and we really want this to just be a way to learn about somebody else and how they grew up and how maybe that's different from yours, because you never know, that could really open up your perspective and learn something new, which is always a good thing, right? Always be a learner.
Always a good thing, baby.
Okay. Well, thank you guys so much again for all of the questions. We will have a part 3 of this.
Part 3.
So we're going to answer the rest of the questions because we had so many.
Yeah.
So we're super excited for that. And we just want to thank you guys again for just joining us. Thank you for watching.
Commenting.
If you are on our Instagram, if you subscribe to our YouTube, if you share videos, if you like them, if you comment, we appreciate you so much. Please continue to do so. Because we want to be able to open up this forum for everybody to just talk and discuss things that maybe we wouldn't necessarily discuss otherwise.
Yeah.
So please keep continuing to share. We appreciate you guys so much. And Jarell is going to pray us out of here today, and we will see you guys next time on part 3.
Part 3. All right. God, thank you so much for everybody who's watching out there. We just ask that there be a overruling of heart and understanding racial matters, that the truth be set out on the table from both sides and both parties, and God, that there be a through line of love and understanding that comes with that, and that there's healing to things that need to be healed in areas that people got blamed for and they didn't do anything. God, we just pray for the hearts to come together as one, and we're going to believe you for that in the name of Jesus. We pray, we love you, we thank you. Amen.
Amen.
All right.
Bye.
Peace out. Peace out.
Have a
Peace
good
out.
week.
Peace out.